All right, everybody, welcome to the Maiden episode, Maiden Voyage of our brand new podcast. My name is Thom Jennings. I'm here with, who am I here with?
You're here with Jack.
I'm here with
your friend Jack Burris.
My friend Jack Burris. And Jack and I, we used to do these different short videos, so we decided we needed to do something media related. So here we are. He came up with this name, and I thought it was interesting and intriguing because it's the first thing you got to come up with. And they always say make the name as short as possible. So we
went the opposite direction.
Yeah, we didn't do that. So it is What to Do with Your Old Porn. And there's like a subtitle to that too, isn't it?
Well, it would. I would imagine at some point we'll just shorten it to old porn. But for the actual podcast, it's What to Do with Your Old Porn.
Yeah, and like other life questions or something.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's old porn, people are gonna look for
what to do with your old porn and other sticky questions.
Yeah, it's sticky. It's an interesting choice of words. So we'll start out with. I mean, what was?
Why do I feel like we should say a prayer before we begin? No, go ahead.
So, well, a little bit. We should probably give the audience a little background on us in case they don't
really
know
want to do that.
Who we are. I by day am a school teacher. I teach special education. Jack and I met each other at a church many years ago. So there's always that Jesus connection.
Rather ironic that I'm sitting here with my ride or die, somebody I did not want to meet.
Yeah, that's true. You can tell that story if you want.
I was thinking that'd be a good place to start.
Let's do it.
Yeah, rather than anything else, and we can get into the name of the title.
Okay.
I mean, I think that'll unpack itself.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, I can't stand that term.
Well, I like to unpack things, especially although I've been in this
I'm looking
house
around
for 2 years.
I'm looking around this room thinking, I'm not so sure I believe that.
Yeah. I moved 2.5 years ago, and Jack actually helped pack the truck. He's a Tetris packer, so he can take things that I've packed in a horrible way and just pack them all into this compact area. But yeah, it's all just still sitting in my garage.
It was all trial and error and skill from many years of moving.
Yeah. So
I was like an army brat child, except for I was just never content, so I moved a lot.
Well, good. You've done well. So go ahead. What was the? We'll go with our first meeting.
Our first meeting. Gosh, I'm gonna have to think. I think I just kept throwing you dirty looks across the sanctuary of the church, if I remember correctly.
Yep, and the church we were at was a place in Albion, New York. We don't need to name the name, do we? It's Albion Free Methodist. But anyhow, go ahead.
Not anymore.
Really? What is it?
They've rebranded.
Oh.
Yep, it's Community of Hope now.
Well, we used to go to a place that no longer exists called Albion Free Methodist. So go ahead, continue.
All right. Anyway, I think this went on for the better part of 2 months, where I kept throwing you dirty looks over the pew. And then at one point felt a little bit convicted by a sermon that we had listened to that day, and decided to go up and apologize to you because I was being a dick and you did not know it.
It's just
preface for those of you that may not know this. I have a propensity to be a dick. So.
Well, it's funny because at work today, no, it was yesterday. At work yesterday, I had a student come up to me, and he's a kid I haven't had in class for over a year. And he says to me, comes in my room and he goes, "Mr. Jennings, can I talk to you for a moment?" I said, "Sure." And he goes, "I just want to apologize for how mean I was to you when I was your student." And I looked at him and I'm like, I don't ever remember you being mean to me. So yeah, it was kind of one of those moments.
He doesn't know your history.
I guess. I mean, I'm a very hot and cold person for the most part. I mean, I love talking to people. I love talking in general, but in terms of if I don't have any kind of interaction, I don't know. I don't necessarily feel the stares. Like I didn't have an inkling that you had beef with me, as the kids would say.
It wasn't necessarily beef. It was in my own head, as most things are. But it goes back to the forgive our sins forgive those things we do not do that we know we should have done.
Yeah.
And I'm generally try to be a very welcoming person to new people in general, regardless of whatever the situation is that I'm in, which is utterly annoying to my wife, but I do generally want people to want to come back to wherever it is that we had been invited to, and I did not want you to come back. And here we are.
I've never had a good experience in churches, so that's okay.
Well, that's why I do the other thing I do, because there's a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
And they matter too.
Yeah. I mean, it's at the time too, just for some context. I mean, you had just gone through the loss of a close friend, and I think that the church body as a whole was still kind of processing or dealing with that. So
they were unpacking it.
Yeah, unpacking it. So we my wife and I were kind of caught up in that. It was a weird situation. I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but we went to these new member classes, and we had gone to 2 or 3 of them, and then just never heard anything again. And then the other couple,
probably because I told them not to call you back.
I don't know, but
I have some pull,
Yeah, they. So then we're in church one day, and they're bringing up these new members, and it was the other couple that we went to church with, and Tracy looks at me and I look at her, and I'm like, what? Like, these guys were still meeting? Like, nobody told us. So,
but the long and the short of it, without digressing down that rabbit trail where we might risk offending people that we care about. I don't look at it as offending people. I don't think my experience is all that unique. I think that's one thing that churches as a whole struggle with in terms of, how to bring in new members. I mean, each church has its own kind of unique community, and it's the same with workplaces, the same with anything. And sometimes you break into the clique, but sometimes you don't, I have a question though.
Yeah.
Is it the church's fault? And I say church with air quotes. Is it the church's fault, or is it our expectation as the searchers of what we're looking for out of the church, again with air quotes?
I think it's individual churches. I mean, churches are either in a very aggressive growth mode, which they're very cognizant of trying to grow. Therefore, they're like any business or musician or any organization that's trying to grow, and as opposed to churches that are complacent. So when we got there, they were complacent. They had a core group of people that did everything, that were the movers and shakers and all that kind of stuff. And I don't want to say that they were completely off-putting, because they weren't. I mean, I met a lot of great people there, but in terms of penetrating that kind of, as I said, that clique or inner circle, that can be difficult, and a number of things come into play.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to get at, because it's like knowing, my history since then, in the past 10 years since then, it seems like a lot of the things that we as people / humanity are searching for when we go to church is not necessarily God, but connection with other people and stuff like that. But then we tend to forget the humanity of the people and the fallen, the humanity. I don't like to say fallen nature, because I think we're all capable of redemption, and it's told that we're going to be. But I think maybe it's our disappointment and our inability to find what we thought we were going to find, so much more so than the fact that the church was really at fault. Because you get the old cliches about the church being a place of broken people and all that, this, that, and the other, and they're cliches, because it's a quick and easy answer and just makes you feel good, when you really ought to just stop and look at yourself a little bit and figure out why, not you, but as people, why we're always coming up short in whatever it is we're looking for, that ultimate source of purpose or source of joy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it all comes down. I mean, God is to me, in many ways, God and faith is somewhat of a separate issue in terms of a church community, because there's other communities. I mean, the Grateful Dead had a community. The Bill's Mafia is considered a family community, and those are things that people feel that they are a part of. They're a part of something that's bigger. So I think if you're going to church, I mean, my experience has been the people that find their way to church fall into a few categories. And again, this doesn't apply to everybody on the planet, but you got somebody who's just dealing with a major tragedy, and they're really suffering, so they're looking for some hope. Okay, so maybe there's an illness or whatnot, so they're looking for hope. They seek religion, which is a great place to go. I mean, addiction, another thing. And then it could just be people like, let's say, Tracy and I, who were a fairly new couple at the time, I think, and we were just looking for more of a kind of the social aspect of it, to feel more part of something within our community. And then, Tracy, my wife, she was raised in, I don't remember, it was maybe a Methodist or something, and I was raised Catholic, but we had a religious background to a certain degree.
That's another podcast in and of itself.
Well, someday we'll discuss it. But those are the things. But I think what it comes down to too is that if what we're talking about here, just in general terms, is how you and I connected.
Oh yeah, there's that.
It goes back to the fact that regardless of what my experience was with the church, obviously something came out of it, right? I mean, you and I were connected, so maybe that is the greater purpose. The greater purpose
and that's
was
what I truly think is often the case. I mean, if you don't necessarily. These are all obviously my opinion because that's the only thing I can have, but you don't necessarily have to know what it is that you're searching when you can just accept that the greater good is within you and is working anyway. I mean, I was on a Zoom call earlier today where it was a bunch of business people and community service for nonprofit providers and stuff like that. And even though we were talking about different issues, and even though I could come at them and say this is an issue and this is why it's the issue, but when it came back down to the crux of it, one thing I could say is regardless whether we agree theologically on who created us or whatever, not one of us can argue that there's only one creator. And if we can look at it that way and accept that, we'll be a lot more accepting of the faults and the joys that others have and make them our own.
Yeah. I teach social studies, and we always have a religious unit. We always have to talk about the fact that, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, which make up a large portion of the faith communities of the world, they're all worshiping the same dude.
There was only one.
I mean, that's the guy.
Yeah, it can be
so
a very very controversial and topic to broach, but I don't care. I mean, there was only one. Yeah. It says the only way to get to him is through Christ, which I think if we've look at that, spoiler alert, I believe it. If we have to look at the life of Christ as the example of the way that we're supposed to act, be, submit, persevere, love, all that kind of stuff, that I would have to say, from my menial understanding, is what is meant by you get to the Father through the Son, because you can look at him and say, okay, yeah, I kind of get that, or that what I'm going through sucks right now, but there's always somebody that's going through something worse. And when if you can keep that bit at the forefront of your mind about there's always somebody going through something worse, for under the Christian context. And I don't mean Christian as the cliche, but as the personhood of Christ. You can look at that and go, yeah, that was worse.
Yeah. But all these people that have tuned in looking for ways to sell their own old pornographic magazines,
yeah, but
are listening at this point going, what are these two guys talking about?
We are talking about how as you progress through your life changes and you have to make adjustments.
Yeah.
And you sometimes have to do things you never thought you'd have to do, like apologize to what is a virtual stranger to you, because in your heart of hearts that you're not treating him properly, even though he didn't know it. And then you end up having your ride or die that you can do a podcast with.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I may have told you this before, if not, but
You love me? Is that what you were going to say?
you know I love you. I've told you that. I told you I love you all the time. I have no problem saying that. But throughout my life, it's weird. I feel like some of the people that I've wound up closest with are people who at first I didn't have a strong connection, and the people that I've had the most difficulty with in terms of betrayals and betrayals of trust and all that are people that I really hit it off with fairly quickly. You know, I've got a friend who's in hospice now. You know, he's I've gone to say goodbye to him a couple times. I mean, he's kind of pulling the old Jimmy Carter, hanging around for a while or whatever. But it's a painful process to begin to lose people that you've had in your life for a very long time, and you reflect on your relationship with them, and mortality and all that stuff, and it's like I go back to we were talking and reminiscing, and it was like, yeah, when he and I first met 40 some odd years ago, like he hated me because I smoked cigarettes, and his dad died of lung cancer, and so I was 16. I had a kid on the way, which made me already look like a degenerate that I was, and I was pretty much a high school dropout looking for a job as a dishwasher. And he just said to me, he goes,
for the sake of argument, that is not being a degenerate, that is being responsible.
Whatever the case.
Well, quit putting yourself down.
It's not.
I know you well enough to know that you've accomplished far more than you will ever recognize or acknowledge.
Well, I tell my high school students, don't have a kid at 16. It's difficult on the kid. It's difficult on the parents. But anyhow, I digress. But
we could make a podcast out of that one someday.
We could do that one. So, but he was like, he wasn't going to hire me because I was a cigarette smoker, and he was 10 years older than me and everything. But somehow we just became very good friends, and have stayed in touch over the years. But yeah, it's weird. And again, I've had people that I was super close with very quickly, and then they have done atrocious things. But I guess, I don't know. I think in some ways, if Fox? If you're a fox, you kind of sit there and wait, and you know when to pounce, right?
Right.
You're looking at your watch. So
I'm wondering what we're thinking on time here.
You said we agreed to 20 minutes per episode, so
yes.
Let me see where we're at. I can tell that we're at 17 minutes and 36 seconds. So
right.
I guess we should at least explain the premise of the show.
This is what I was coming around to, because I'm like, I feel like we've been chatting for a little while now, and it's going to start wrapping up. But
we have.
The premise of the show is based on basically doing things that you didn't think you would ever do, like getting rid of your porn, or apologizing to somebody that has no freaking clue that you did in your heart something to them, even though they would never experience that you did nothing malicious, nothing physical, not even a bad word, but your heart tells you there's something you need to do and you need to do it. How the good things come from that. Much like, when that decision comes that like, hey, you know what? Maybe this porn's really messing with my life. My wife doesn't seem to like it. It doesn't seem to be doing me a whole lot of good as far as my preoccupations with my time and whatnot. I wonder why, and you have to kind of look at that and go, you come to a point where you're like, all right, well, it's probably ruined my relationships. It's probably tainted my relationships with any number of women or even men, your children and stuff like that you didn't intend. So maybe it's a good time to change that, whatever it is, not necessarily porn, but that, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And in doing so, it was a stretch for me to try to think, like, literally, what do I do with the old porn? Because it's not something you want to inflict on someone else.
Yeah, I almost look at it along the lines of, okay, so, I'm 57. You're a little bit younger than me. What are you, 50?
I'll be 55 this year.
You'll be 55 this year. Happy birthday in advance. April, isn't it?
May.
I was close.
Coming up.
So, porn, I mean, like my dad had porn growing up. He had a lot of Playboy magazines and everything like that. So when I think of like the old porn, I think of the old, the magazines, the whatever.
Yeah.
When my dad died, he had all this porn, and I'm just like,
right. And
what
again,
do I do with this stuff?
And again, who wants your kid to have to sort through that? which is one of the things. Like, do you throw it in the recycling bin?
Yeah,
the guy in the trash truck takes it. Do you throw it in the trash can and risk the guy in the dump getting it or something? I mean, you found it to be destructive in your own life. So what do? You do the only logical thing. You burn it.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't burn it. I mean,
I totally burned it.
I should have sold it because, man, my father had like an incredible. Well, my father had a really good Playboy collection, but when I was in grade school, I used to pull.
That's kind of an oxymoron.
Well, large, okay,
There you
good,
go.
valuable in terms of monetarily.
That's a fairly good assessment.
But see, and I say
in the
this
world
because
today.
I sold the centerfolds when I was like 12 or 13 to all.
No, I can't
kids
get
for
the
like
song out of my head.
To 50 cents. Which song?
Centerfold.
Oh yeah. So, but there weren't any in there. So they really, I guess they didn't have any monetary value. But yes, you're right. It's regardless. It's a conundrum. You know?
And that's what the podcast is.
So we should just call the podcast Conundrum.
Yeah, but that wouldn't get as many people going,
No.
my old porn. What to do with my old, why would you listen to that?
Well, like,
and then have it have nothing to do with your old porn.
Sweetheart, there's
That's a bait and switch, baby.
We got a podcast about a couple of guys talking about selling old porn on eBay. I'm going to tune in. No, it's not that. So, but that puts us at the 20-minute mark. So, listen, folks, if you've enjoyed anything that you've heard, we're 21 minutes, but that's okay. That's good for me. So if you enjoy the podcast, please share it. If you have any topics, I'll put my contact information in the show notes.
We won't listen to it, but you can send them to us.
Well, if they send me an email, I will look at it, and we'll go from there. But
because if we don't, we'll have to apologize later.
Oh, goodness, of course. And if we may meet you at first and dislike you just like you dislike. See, but if you dislike this podcast at first...
I didn't even like this podcast at first.
Give it a chance, and you might like it later on. So, all right. So, until next time, this is Tom, and of course, I'm with
John Jack. Cheerio, Wheaties, Rice Krispies.
Cheerio.